If you want to understand what an infrastructure time bomb in an aging megacity sounds like, don't imagine an explosion. Imagine a morning so normal it's almost boring. The same pale light over rooftops, the same traffic lights blinking on cue, the same water running clear, the same trains arriving with that familiar metallic sigh. Nothing looks wrong, and that's precisely the danger, because the systems that keep a megacity alive are designed to disappear from your attention until the moment they can't. A commuter in New York descends into the subway with coffee in one hand and a phone in the other. He's done this thousands of times. He knows the damp smell in the tunnel and the squeal of wheels long before the train appears. In London, someone crosses a bridge in the wind, barely noticing the vibrations underfoot. In Paris, a delivery rider slips through a lane narrowed by yet another roadwork barrier. In Tokyo, an engineer watches a control panel where everything is green, calm, normal. None of these people are thinking about the pipes, cables, joints, bolts, and concrete seams beneath them because the modern city has trained them not to. It's a machine that pretends to be invisible. Then, somewhere underground, a sound happens that no one hears. A main water pipe splits in the dark like a tiny tear in an artery. Water surges into soil, scouring out a hidden cavity. Above ground, the street doesn't collapse like a movie scene. It sinks just enough to become a trap. One lane slows, a bus has to merge. A delivery van breaks earlier than it should. And in a megacity, that first tiny disruption is rarely the end of the story. It's the first domino. Barriers go up, utility trucks arrive, traffic gets diverted. The detour pushes cars into adjacent streets that were already at capacity. Trains slow because water seeps into a service corridor. Thousands of people are late, not because they did anything wrong, but because a buried piece of the city's body decided it could not keep its shape for one more day. A small shop near the incident loses the lunchtime rush. A hospital checks water pressure because fire suppression can't be allowed to almost work. On phones, people scroll past the news with an exhausted shrug, again. And a few days later, the city stitches the surface back together. Asphalt is smooth, flow resumes, above ground, it looks like nothing happened. That's why it's a time bomb, not because the city will explode once and then go quiet, but because the failures arrive as a series of small events that slowly erode reliability. Each incident seems manageable in isolation. Together, they turn normal life into a constant negotiation with delays, closures, detours, and sudden outages. The bomb is not one dramatic moment. The bomb is the compounding cost of keeping an aging body alive with patchwork repairs while its organs keep aging in silence. The first reason aging megacities are trapped in this loop is simple and brutal. Much of their infrastructure was built for a world that no longer exists. Many of the largest cities in the US and Europe still rely on systems laid down from the late 19th century through the mid-20th century when populations were smaller. Vehicles were lighter, electricity demand was lower, and normal weather was gentler and more predictable. These networks weren't built for today's intensity, and they certainly weren't built for tomorrow's extremes. Modern megacities aren't just bigger, they're heavier. They run hotter, faster, and closer to the edge. They survive through circulation, clean water in, wastewater out, electricity in, waste heat out, goods in, trash out. People moving like blood through arteries. When the city's load increases, pressure rises everywhere. And when the city's bones are old, pressure doesn't simply create wear. It accelerates aging, because every small weakness becomes a stress point that gets hit again and again. The second reason is hiddenness. The most critical parts of a city sit where you rarely look and where repairs are hardest. Beneath the street is a layered world: water mains, storm drains, sewers, power cables, fiber lines, rail tunnels, foundations often stacked and tangled across generations of upgrades. Fixing one system can damage another. Digging in central Manhattan or inner London is not maintenance. It's surgery on a patient who must keep running. You don't get to shut the city down for 6 months without paying a massive social and economic price. And that price becomes political. A mayor gets applause for opening a new bridge. No one applauds replacing a water main buried underground because no one sees it until it bursts. So megacities fall into a predictable trap: delay. They stretch lifespans with temporary fixes, just enough to get through the next budget cycle, the next election, the next crisis. The city learns to live in a permanent state of good enough, and good enough becomes the most expensive strategy imaginable because it turns prevention into emergency response. This is the core mechanism of the time bomb, the compound interest of neglect. Concrete doesn't fail the moment cracks appear. Steel doesn't snap the moment corrosion begins. Pipes don't burst the moment their walls thin. They have buffers, and buffers create denial. If it worked yesterday, we assume it will work tomorrow. But every day pushes the system closer to a threshold where a small shock can trigger a chain reaction, especially in a megacity where everything depends on everything else. That small shock now comes from 3 directions at once: rising usage intensity, worsening climate stress, and deep technological interconnection. Usage intensity is the simplest to feel. Trucks are heavier, traffic is denser, rail systems run closer to maximum capacity. A 24/7 economy means infrastructure loses its rest time. The quiet hours that once allowed maintenance overnights, weekends shrink or vanish. A system that never rests ages faster, like a body that never sleeps. Climate stress adds a different kind of pressure one older systems were not designed to absorb. Higher temperatures warp roads, expand rails, and push power grids into overload as cooling demand spikes. Extreme rainfall turns storm drains into choke points. Water backs up into stations and basements, and it finds every crack the city forgot it had. Sea level rise and storm surges push salt water into coastal foundations, accelerating corrosion and weakening defenses. Sudden cold snaps followed by thaw-force pipes to expand and contract repeatedly, creating microfractures that accumulate until the day they finally split. Then comes interconnection, the force that turns a technical failure into a systemic crisis. A modern city is not only concrete and steel. Its sensors, control software, telecom networks, payment systems, and data centers. When a power failure hits, it can freeze signals, shut down transit operations, break communications, stop electronic payments, disrupt logistics, and slow emergency response. When everything is linked, a single weak point can become a spreading point. The city doesn't just lose one service. It loses coordination, and coordination is what makes a megacity tolerable. At this point, the obvious question sounds simple: why not just invest more? Because money is only one wall. The next wall is how cities make decisions under pressure. Many aging megacities carry heavy obligations that compete with infrastructure, healthcare, housing, education, pensions, public safety, debt service. When budgets tighten, governments cut what hasn't caught fire yet: long-term maintenance, because voters feel today's pain more than tomorrow's risk. The irony is that postponing maintenance guarantees a future bill that is larger, more disruptive, and often more dangerous. Even when money exists, governance can be fragmented. A bridge might be managed by one authority, the access roads by another, the transit lines by a third, the power supply by a private utility, the storm drains by a separate agency. Add procurement rules, legal constraints, neighborhood pushback, and political turnover, and you get a system that struggles to think long-term. Infrastructure projects don't fit neatly into election cycles, yet election cycles often decide whether projects live or die. This is why, in real life, the pipe burst isn't just a pipe, it's a node. Close the wrong valve and pressure spikes elsewhere, creating new breaks. Divert traffic the wrong way and a minor incident becomes a gridlock spiral. Every response has second-order consequences, and the city's ability to respond depends on coordination across multiple systems that may not share the same priorities, data, or accountability. From the outside, it looks like incompetence. From the inside, it is often complexity plus delay plus fear of making the disruption worse. When the city crosses a threshold, failure stops feeling exceptional and starts feeling like a rhythm of life. Delays become normal, emergency repairs become routine. Barricades become permanent decorations. People adapt, but adaptation has a cost: lost time, higher prices, and a quiet erosion of trust. And once trust erodes, long-term solutions become harder because the public becomes less willing to tolerate the controlled disruption that real upgrades require. The pain is not shared evenly. Infrastructure decay amplifies inequality because wealth buys resilience. Affluent buildings can afford backup generators, private maintenance, and flexibility. Lower-income neighborhoods often sit closer to flood-prone streets, weaker drainage, older housing, and heavier reliance on public transit. When trains run late, hourly workers lose income. When flooding hits basements, it hits those who have the least margin. When ambulance routes slow, the cost is measured in minutes that matter. In that sense, infrastructure is not only engineering, it is social justice built into concrete. Economically, the stakes are larger than inconvenience. Megacities are engines of national productivity. Reliability is the hidden currency that keeps commerce efficient: on-time transit, stable power, predictable logistics. When reliability drops, businesses stop optimizing and start hedging. They carry extra inventory, build redundancies, price in uncertainty. That raises costs for everyone and chips away at competitiveness. In the long run, cities that refuse reinvestment don't just become uncomfortable. They become expensive, fragile, and easy to outpace. So what does defusing the time bomb actually look like? It begins with a mindset shift. In the 20th century, urban success meant building new to expand. In the 21st century, survival for aging megacities means maintaining to endure and restructuring to adapt. Maintenance is not a background chore, it is strategy. That requires treating infrastructure assets managed over a life cycle, not as projects completed long ago. It means prioritizing the choke points that can trigger domino effects, replacing what is riskiest first, and measuring success by avoided disasters, not flashy openings. It also requires facing the hardest question openly: who pays for durability? Cities have already borrowed from the future by under-maintaining. Repaying that debt can come through taxes, user fees, bonds, private capital, or some hybrid that matches local politics. Every option has a cost, but avoiding the choice guarantees the worst payment plan of all: paying in crisis, after failure, with the added price of public anger and lost trust. Technology can help, but only if it is used as preventive medicine rather than marketing. Sensors that detect leaks, systems that monitor bridge vibration, rail temperature, transformer load, and flood risk allow cities to repair before rupture. Early detection turns emergency chaos into scheduled work done at night, off-peak, with smaller disruptions and far lower social cost. Alongside that, cities must redesign for a harsher climate: better drainage, permeable surfaces, retention basins, heat mitigation, coastal defenses, and infrastructure that assumes extremes are normal, not rare. And finally, sometimes diffusing the bomb means reducing the load instead of only reinforcing the structure. Shifting travel toward reliable public transit can reduce road stress. Better land use can shorten daily trips. Building redundancy alternate routes, backup systems, clear detours can keep the city functioning even when 10% or 20% of capacity is lost on bad days. A resilient city isn't one that never fails. It's one that fails without cascading into paralysis. If you return to that first ordinary morning, the difference between a livable city and a fragile machine is rarely visible on the surface. It's in the decisions made underground and behind closed doors, in investments that no one applauds because nothing dramatic happens afterward. Aging megacities don't collapse because they are old. They collapse because they convince themselves they are still fine until still fine becomes a life of constant breakdowns. The opposite is also true. A city can live a very long time. It does the most counterintuitive thing modern politics resist: spend heavily on what people cannot see, so they never have to see disaster.